Republican senator from Tennessee, has disputed that the majority leader in front of every Republican senator made that promise, looking me in the eyes, namely that there was no deal on the Export-Import Bank, that its proponents could offer in the regular order, and there would be no special preferences whatsoever. We saw on Friday that promise was false. In particular, for the amendment on the Export-Import Bank, first of all, it was not offered by its proponents. It was called up by the majority leader. Very few of us get our amendments called up by the majority leader because his priority of recognition, he can edge out any other amendment in this chamber. Secondly, the majority leader followed that by filling the tree, a procedural mechanism that he had often decried when the former majority leader employed it to block other amendments. And third, the majority leader filed cloture on the Export-Import Bank amendment, a tool that he has used only once in his entire tenure as majority leader. Those were extraordinary steps designed to force a vote to reauthorize the Export-Import Bank, and they were directly contrary to the promises the majority leader made to all 53 Republicans and to the press. My saying so may be uncomfortable, but it is a simple fact entirely consistent with decorum, and no member of this body has disputed that promise was made and that promise was broken.
In 2013, the Obama administration released from detention roughly 36,000 convicted criminal aliens who were awaiting the outcomes of deportation proceedings. These criminal aliens were responsible for 193 homicide convictions. They were responsible for 426 sexual assault convictions. They were responsible for 303 kidnapping convictions. They were responsible for 1,075 aggravated assault convictions. They were responsible for 16,070 drunk driving convictions. On top of that, the Obama administration had another 68,000 illegal immigrants with criminal convictions that the federal government encountered but never even bothered to take into custody for deportation.
The new mandatory minimum sentences bill would have a crippling financial effect. This legislation would require about 20,000 new prison beds, 20,000. 12 new prisons, cost over $3 billion.
Would you describe it as a high priority?
It is one of the major priorities.
Okay, so a major priority.
Yes.
I guess then I would ask you to reconcile that comment that it's a high priority with the data. And in particular, in 2010, out of 48,321 felons and fugitives who attempted to illegally purchase firearms, the Department of Justice prosecuted only 44 of them. How do you address the fact that in the last 18 years the satellite data show no demonstrable warming whatsoever? 8 months ago, the Inspector General of the Department of Treasury concluded that the IRS had improperly targeted conservative citizen groups, Tea Party groups, pro-Israel groups, pro-life groups. The day that was made public, President Obama described what had occurred as, quote, intolerable and inexcusable. And he said, Americans have a right to be angry about it, and I'm angry about it. Likewise, that same day, you said the IRS's targeting of conservative citizens groups was, quote, outrageous and unacceptable. That was 8 months ago. In the 8 months that have transpired, Lois Lerner, the head of the office that targeted conservatives improperly, has gone before Congress and pleaded the Fifth, which, as you know, means she raised her hand and said, if I testify, I may incriminate myself in criminal conduct. For a senior government official to plead the Fifth is a major occurrence. In the 280 days since that Inspector General report, nobody has been indicted, not a single person.
Everything else that's being talked about is smoke. It is a side issue. The central fight here is, should the United States Senate be able to raise the debt limit with 50 votes or 60? Now, I will note my friend from Arizona questioned the knowledge of those who are objecting, and he suggested that perhaps our knowledge was lacking because this could not be done. Well, I know my friend from Arizona is a long veteran of this body, and he surely knows that in 1987 and 1990 it was done. This is not a hypothetical. And in 1995 and 2004 it was attempted. It didn't quite get accomplished, but it was attempted. And what occurs under the Budget Act of 1974 is that when a conference report is adopted and reconciliation instructions are sent that raise the debt ceiling, that can then be passed by this body with merely 50 votes.
I appreciate my friend from Tennessee's comments. And I would note that he suggested that this is confusing, and I guess I don't think it's all that confusing. The senator from Tennessee says that a vote in favor of cloture is a vote in favor of the House bill and in favor of defunding Obamacare. If that's the case, then the question I would pose to my friend from Tennessee, why is Majority Leader Harry Reid going to vote the same way you're proposing to vote? Why is every Democrat in this chamber going to vote the way you're proposing to vote? If this is a vote in favor of defunding Obamacare, is it the senator from Tennessee's suggestion that the Majority Leader and the Senate Democrats are confused about this vote? Does the senator from Tennessee dispute that the vote Wednesday was a vote to take up the bill, whereas the vote tomorrow will be a vote that will do two things if there are 60 votes, if enough Republicans cross the aisle, join Majority Leader Harry Reid and the Democrats? It will, number one, cut off all debate, and it will, number two, what makes the vote tomorrow so significant is the Majority Leader has already filed an amendment. That amendment guts the House continuing resolution and funds Obamacare in its entirety.
If this amendment is adopted to the current bill, the effect would be that those 11 million under this current bill would still be eligible for RPI status. They would still be eligible for legal status, and indeed under the terms of the bill they would be eligible for LPR status as well, so that they are out of the shadows, which the proponents of this bill repeatedly point to as their principal objective, to provide a legal status for those who are here illegally to be out of the shadows. This amendment would allow that to happen. But what it would do is remove the pathway to citizenship so that there are real consequences that respect the rule of law and that treat legal immigrants with the fairness and respect they deserve. And a second point to those advocacy groups that are so passionately engaged. In my view, if this committee rejects this amendment, in my view, that decision will make it much, much more likely that this entire bill will fail in the House of Representatives.
So I thank you for the opportunity to clarify. Let me be very, very clear. I do not believe we should shut down the federal government. The only reason we might shut down the federal government is if President Obama and Majority Leader Reid decide they want to force a government shutdown.
Yield further for question.
I'm happy to yield for a question without.
The Senator has spoken at length many times, including today, about his education, and I respect it. He's gone to some very famous schools. Certainly the Senator understands that it takes 60 votes to achieve the goal that he is trying to achieve, and which means that the Senator believes he has at least all the votes on his side of the aisle and another 14 votes on the Democratic side of the aisle to repeal Obamacare. Does the Senator have that belief?
I thank the Senator for that question, and I thank the Senator for the comment he has made in public, noting that having attended the schools I have, that perhaps I hadn't learned to count to 60. I will note that I'm quite familiar with what is necessary to defund Obamacare. And what I have said for months is this is a long process. I am not remotely Pollyannish. I am not remotely under the illusion that this is going to be a short, quick process that suddenly Obamacare will be defunded.